Hello and welcome to Legends Cast, a podcast for the Tessel pilgrims and refugees search in search of a new game, wandering lost in the desert, hoping to find their way to an oasis. And me and DBN are here to help guide you to your next digital collectible card game oasis. My name is Mark, and I'm one of the co-hosts here at Legend Cast. And with me tonight, I, of course, have Dead Broke Nerd. Dead Broke Nerd, how you doing, man?
Doing all right. I actually came down with a little bit of a cold over the last couple days, which delayed all of my YouTube content, which was frustrating because, I mean, today I was able to get some done, which was awesome. But yesterday my throat hurt too much. I was just like, I'm not going to do this. And anytime you get behind on YouTube content, people start messaging you like, hey, are you gonna drop a video? And I'll be like, yeah, I'm just really sick. But yeah, no, it's getting better now. I'm on the upswing, which is great. I'm starting my new job next week, which I'm very excited and thankful for. And yeah, I mean, life is good. Life is good.
That's good, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just talking off of air before we started recording. You're starting your new job next week. Mm-hmm. I went back to school this week, and so life has been full, but we're in 2020. It's an Olympics year, it's an election year for the United States, and it's the year that every Elder Scrolls Legends player will be looking for a new game to play. It's a big year for a lot of us. We're going to talk a little bit tonight about the fact that really Tessel isn't dead. It's still actually, honestly, in many ways, I think I've had more fun with Tessel since the announcement than I was having before the announcement. And that isn't a comment on the caliber of player right now, but a comment on the new cards that they released.
Yeah.
But before we dive into that, we took a couple of week break. We got the Tessel news. We made episode 25, sort of announcing kind of like where we were. Feeling a little burnt, I don't know that both of us were completely charred, but certainly a little bit crispy on episode 25.
Mm-hmm.
DBN, have you found that some of that crispiness has subsided with the last couple of weeks off, or you still feeling a little bit crispy?
I stand by everything I said. I stand by all of what I said about why things failed. I think it's one of those things like when you've connected with a game so heavily for so long. I mean, I think when the game gets shut down and you kind of have that feeling of loss and betrayal, I mean, I think you kind of, in a way, go through a mini, stage of grief, you know what I mean? And sure. I think, like, I am at the acceptance point now, and so it's not as big of a deal. And, I mean, I've still played some Tessel, not admittedly as much, although I did play in a tournament for the first time in forever. It's funny that it takes Tessel dying to make me say, oh man, that's right, tournaments are fun.
maybe I should try one of those guys. Maybe I should try one of those local those tournaments.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, before I was just trying to cast them, and I was like, nah, I don't need to play, That's what those guys do. But now it's like, well, who cares?
So over Christmas and New Year's, did you get a chance to take a little bit of a break and just catch a breather away from content creation, away from Tessel, away from Reddit, which hopefully everybody for the Christmas holiday gave themselves a break from Reddit?
Considering I almost never look at Reddit, that was easy. Yep. Nailed it. Yep. Check that one off.
Continue that break. New Year's resolution. Mm-hmm. There we go.
Yeah. But no, I actually didn't take a break off of content creation. I had videos all through Christmas and New Year's. It was only like right after New Year's when I started getting a little sick that I took a little break. But no, I mean, I was playing games, but it was all for like I managed to get ahead over Christmas, right? Like I dropped a video I dropped a video on Christmas and Christmas Eve. But it was like because I scheduled them ahead. And that's one of the things, like, if you want to do YouTube, guys, here's an easy tip. Try to get ahead if you know you're going to go out of town, and then you can be that cool person who actually does post on a holiday. I actually got more views than I expected on the holiday because I think not a lot of people did post. They took those weeks off, and I didn't. And I really did take the week off. I just did the work ahead of time and scheduled the videos. And frankly, admittedly, like card game gameplay videos are not hard to edit and put together once you have a rhythm. And so I was able to get ahead on that. But yeah, no, I mean, I was able to play a lot of games to recharge the battery, though. I was just playing goofy, stupid stuff, you know?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we even got a chance to chat just before the Archon tournament that you got a chance to play in and I got a chance to cast and even got to mess around with some goofy decks, prepping and getting ready for that. One of which I've been playing the last couple of days quite a bit, which was that little Reanimator deck that we ended up sort of combining our two decks and coming up with a Reanimator deck together that ended up being, it's a tremendous amount of fun to play. And I've personally been really enjoying it. Over the holiday break, I got a chance to really take a break. It was nice, you know, having a weekly podcast is a really fun thing, actually. But there is a certain element in which when it goes from, I'm just going to record this from, you know, kind of like whenever I want to, okay, I'm putting out weekly content, there becomes almost like this feeling like a bit of a job, right? It moves from creative outlet to obligation. And it's nice to get a break from that because it sort of, I missed it, right? And I wasn't really missing recording the show leading up to episode 25. But while we haven't been recording the past couple of weeks because of the holidays, I've missed it. And so it's been really great to be back and great to, you know, do a little bit of recording again. One of the major blessings of Christmas. I mean, we had a really great holiday. It was the first Christmas that my wife and I didn't wake up somewhere other than our house, right? So we've always gone to my in-laws and spent the night at their or my parents' house. But this year we spent the night at our house and got to wake up on Christmas morning with the kids, which was a really cool thing. But as an extra bonus, after Christmas, I was able to splurge and get a post-Christmas gift and upgrade some PC parts, which has allowed me to stream and run ESO and some other games without like absolutely melting my computer. And so, you know, new motherboard, new processor, lots of RAM, all that stuff. So it's been cool. I don't really have time to stream, but I've dabbled around in a little bit and really been enjoying that. Even got a chance to pull up some Legends and stream a little bit of Legends over the break, which I got a chance to sort of like hang out with some folks during that. And that's probably the coolest part of streaming I'm finding is that if you just get a chance to sort of, I'm going to be playing this game anyway, let's throw my face up on the screen and see if anybody wants to come and hang out.
Yeah.
That seems to be the way that it's going to work for me because there's no way at this stage in life I can, you know, create a consistent schedule. And if I did, right, I think streaming quits being a creative outlet and starts becoming a job.
Yeah, it can for sure. Now, before we move further, since we're talking about Christmas and stuff like that, let me ask this question. What was your favorite gift you received and the favorite gift that you gave? So we'll do that. I feel like this is just fun things people might be amused by.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's like a hard, I mean, the computer parts don't really count, right? Like
no, they do not count.
They're useful, but they were like, it was a Christmas present because it was some money that we got from my in-laws, but from my wife was probably the coolest gifts that I got. So my wife, and it's kind of a tie. My wife got me a piece of artwork by Ryan Lockett, who is the board game owner and designer of Red Raven Games. He does all the artwork, all the board game design, all the sculpting, all the graphic design, all the publishing, all by himself. Dang. And he has made my favorite games that my wife and I both love playing together. And we recently backed his Sleeping Gods Kickstarter, will be coming here in May. And so that was a really sweet gift. And my wife also got me the Ninja Coffee Bar,
what?
Which I'm not, it's this sick, you know what Ninja is, right? They make like sick blenders or something.
Yeah.
So there's a coffee bar that makes like loose leaf tea and like all these different sizes of coffees. It literally, dude, it's so high tech. It checks your altitude when you register it, so it can set the boiling temperature right. Oh my
gosh, that's crazy!
It has a frother on the side. It makes like this version, like this condensed stuff that's almost like espresso. So you can make like mochas and lattes and stuff. So I've been making like mochas, caramel lattes. It makes iced coffee, cold brew coffee. So I made some like a like an iced caramel macchiato the other day. So there's some that's been like useful, and I didn't even think that I would like it because I'm the type of person like, don't get me something useful, don't get me clothes, don't get me something with a plug unless it's like a sick electronic. And so, my wife getting me this coffee bar, she was a little nervous about it, but it turned out to be really, really sweet. In terms of the gift, probably the most expensive gift that I gave is I gave my wife a anniversary band, which is basically a ring to go on the other side of your engagement ring. So it's typically like wedding band, engagement ring. This is like a golden ring with like little diamonds in the band that go on the other side of it. We surprised her with that. I thought that I surprised her, but I hid it on a new credit card that I opened, which I don't own a credit card for a whole bunch of reasons so that I don't get in debt. But because my wife is great with money, I have a perfect credit score, credit to her. And so I got this credit card and hid it on this credit card. I was going to pay it off after Christmas, and the credit card invoice came in the mail 2 days before Christmas. So she knew that I had done it. But I didn't want her to be mad. My wife's like a mad budgeter, but I ended up putting it with a note that it was from our daughters and had my daughter Brooklyn surprise her with it and give it to her, which made it so, like she can't turn it down then, right? Because it'll make my daughter make it to your cry.
Smart.
So it's a super sneaky way to get that over budget gift in. So that may have been the best. Maybe been the best gift that I got. I got my brother a beard straightener.
For the first time I mean, I guess I probably should have one. Look at this nasty ass beard, but
well, my brother is growing a 2-year beard. It's about down to his chest right now.
Oh my gosh.
It's this enormous, his beard is bright. It's like a bright red. He has brown hair, but he has a bright red.
That's cool.
Like, when he has to work, he works at like a meat market. He has to roll it up like a scroll and tuck it inside of a beard net. Otherwise, it won't fit. And he can't even use a beard net anymore. It's so big. He has to use a second hair net. One goes over his ears, one goes under his ears.
Oh my gosh.
And he rolls his beard into it like a scroll,
that's hilarious.
Freaking epic. So I got him a beard straightener. I thought that was creative and cool. But,
that is cool. That is cool. I saw one of those for the first time the other day. I was like, oh, that's neat. I didn't know. I should have guessed that they made it. They make lots of things now, but
sure,
that is cool.
Everything.
Yeah. I mean, think of something that could be made. It's been made, Yeah,
they have it. You can buy it. It's on Amazon. You can have it in 2 days.
Yeah.
Unless you're one of our European listeners, and then you probably can't.
Yeah.
Okay. So DBN, what about you? Best gift you gave, best gift you received?
Well, I think the best, I received a lot of really cool personal gifts, which was nice. I think the one I was most excited for in a mostly utilitarian way was I got climbing shoes from my parents. My parents are very supportive of athletic endeavors, and I like to refer to myself as a sporty nerd, right? So I'm a nerd first, but I also like sports and doing things outside, and I'm not an elite athlete or anything. I played ultimate frisbee at D1 school, which for what that's worth, right? I mean, but I was never like the elite athlete, but I love doing sporty things. So I'm a sporty nerd, and my parents are very supportive of, when I get like hooked on something new, sporty wise. My mom especially is like, oh, we should support that. So they heard that I'd started going bouldering,
Okay.
And I was just loving it, but I was getting rental shoes every time I'd go. And it's not expensive to get rental shoes. It really isn't, but,
no, you just get athlete's foot real easy.
Well, you wear socks and, but, I mean, it's just like a bowling alley, but you got to wear socks. But anyway, so they got me some climbing shoes, some really nice climbing shoes. And I've been going, cause I mean, at this point I go twice a week, and it's been a really fun thing cause all of my close friends have been doing it too. So it's just been a nice way to kind of get a good workout, especially in the winter when ultimate frisbee is way less appealing to play. Yeah. And then I gave my father a book that I really like, which is called The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. It's a fantasy novel that I think is just absolutely incredible. And I had a job at one point, and I own the book too, and I've read it since, but I've probably given this book to like 3 people now because of how much I love it and how like I think it's a very personal book for me because I listened to it on audiobook for the first time when I had a job that I absolutely hated. And it was kind of the only thing that kind of got me through the days about like without being just miserable. And so I really enjoy it. And anybody who's who likes fantasy should definitely check out Name of the Wind. It's an incredible book, a little long but really good and exciting and different. It's very different from a lot of fantasy. It's not like not like a guy waving a sword around rescuing princesses and slaying dragons. It's way more subdued, but no less exciting and interesting. So definitely check it out.
Very cool.
But I gave that to my dad, and he and I share a lot of the similar. He's the nerd of the family. I got my nerdy stuff from my dad, and I got my sort of more sporty stuff from my mom. So
yeah, very cool. Very cool. Well, hey, man, I'm glad that you had a great Christmas and a great New Year's. And of course, DBN and I have been talking on and off, back and forth kind of through the holidays, talking a little bit about what we wanted to do with the show, and kind of where things were going. But so we've both been playing Tessel, and because, it's hard to break an old habit. And I don't think, like I said earlier in the show, I've been really surprised. I don't know about you, but I know that I've actually really thoroughly enjoyed the time that I've spent on Elder Scrolls Legends recently. And that could actually be because like I didn't get to rank 4 last month, so I'm down at like rank 7. I got climbed back up to 7 right now, and maybe there's a little bit more fun down there because I don't think I've been at rank 7 since my 2nd month of playing the game a couple of years ago. I've always been able to just chunk up to rank 4 to make sure I didn't drop below 5, pretty much always. So my first time down there in a while, but I don't know. I've been having a great deal of fun. There's some of those cards that I still haven't even experimented with that they put out. It's a little bittersweet because honestly, some of these new cards I think have actually impacted the meta in a really positive way. And in a way that I have found to be fun and enjoyable and a little less predictable, but not like I'm not seeing constant invade. So I don't know. It seems almost as though the game isn't in a really bad spot right now. The game's actually meta-wise in a pretty good place. And you have some pretty meta staples still, but I think it was in a pretty good place. And I've been enjoying the game. So I've been playing a little bit of Reanimator. I've been playing some All Merry Dominion with the new guy and with the market. I've been playing some Empire Token, messing around with that. I played some Shout Dragon Archer the other day because now I've crafted basically every dragon in the game. So just slotted them all in there and went to town with a new Call Dragon Shout and some Shout improvement cards and some lethal creatures and just playing the Archer package with dragons and Shouts, and that's been a tremendous amount of fun. So definitely been enjoying that game. Before I tell anybody about kind of like what I'm exploring, have you been playing some Tessel as well? What have you been messing around with?
Well, I managed to get back up to rank 4 on New Year's Eve.
Oh wow! Okay.
In the last hour and a half.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah, really last chance.
I kind of it was sitting around at New Year's Eve and was doing stuff with the family, and I kind of everything started like winding down, and we were like kind of sat down to watch a movie or something, and it was just myself, my dad, my mom went to bed, my grandfather went to bed. It was myself and my dad and my sister, and we were like gonna watch a movie, and I was like, oh crap, I didn't get to rank 4. Is that okay? Can I get to rank 4 in this amount of time? Is it okay if I drop to 9? God, I'm going to be so irritated if I drop to 9. If I drop to 9, I may never get back up to 5. I may never find the motivation to do that. Dang it. All right, let me see if I can do it. So I logged on, and I was like, where am I? Oh, crap, I'm in the Serpent. And I said, all right, you know what? There's no time to screw around. I need to go to my old standby. Got to go Token Crusader. Okay. And I booted up Token Crusader, and what it really revealed to me, 1, Token Crusader is still incredible. 2, I was playing a slightly outdated build that wasn't running Wily Kivas, so it reminded me to put Wily Kivas in after I already got there. I was like,
Okay.
wait. I was like, I never saw my Wiley Kivas. What the heck? In all these games, I never saw my Wiley Kivas. And I didn't put them in here.
They're not even in this.
They're not even in here. So Token Crusader, still very good. Doesn't need Wiley Kivas, apparently.
Which is a really good part of Token Crusader.
Yes. And it also reinforced to me, I'm really good at Token Crusader.
That's your deck.
That's my deck, man. I think I lost like 2 games going up, and one of them was like a mirror match or something where they had the ring. Like it was an aggro mirror where they had the ring, and it's just like sometimes you can win those, but I don't think you're favored if in the aggro mirror with the ring. And everybody's talked about the ring to death, and I don't want to talk about the ring, but bottom line is I won so much, and there's a lot of complexity to Crusader that like a lot of things to learn. Like when you pick up Token Crusader, like I used to think, oh, it's such a good deck, like you can just hand this to a newbie, and I was like, wait, no, there's a lot of complexity, especially in terms of ordering, and it's just something that you pick up by playing a lot of Token Crusader. So it was cool to be like, this is why in all the other tournaments, whenever I'd play in a tournament, I would play Token Crusader, and it's why in the tournaments that I did really well in, people weren't banning Token Crusader. Like my Token Crusader didn't get banned. And I think back to every game that I lost, and this is true, I hadn't played in a lot of tournaments. Every tournament that I went to, I took Token Crusader. I never lost a round in which my Token Crusader was available to me. Like I never lost a tournament round in which I was allowed to play Token Crusader. They'd either ban it or I didn't take it. Yeah. And so I was like, man, it's just kind of cool to have that, like, it's a little bit of a confidence boost to be like, that's right. Like, this is my deck. I can pull out Token Crusader and I can execute the strategies at a very high level. And it kind of reminded me, I haven't played Token Crusader forever because I've been in this like meme grind where I just meme to put things on YouTube, because memeing is super fun and I'm super into it, but like it reminded me, that's right, I can still play this game at a high level. Like that's cool.
Yeah, and it's cool to find like a little bit of identity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, now like, and sometimes it's just good nostalgia wise to just kind of like go back to a deck that you were familiar with, right? Yeah. And something that you were good at, especially if you're memeing, because as you're memeing and trying out new decks or just trying to make something win or just trying to complete quests, you can really begin questioning whether or not you are terrible at the game.
Yeah.
And you're like, do I actually suck at this?
Yeah.
Like, I've seen people win with memes. Why can't I? Must suck at this game. And I think that when you go back to a standard deck that you're pretty familiar with, I have a pretty similar experience when I go back to like older scout builds, which is why I like the Reanimator deck, because it reminds me some of the older scout builds. And that's kind of like, that feels a lot more like my bread and butter than most decks. In fact, we were talking about this a little bit on Archon, because I really have, since the Battle Mage meta, struggled to find my place in some ways, because I've just never been able to figure out the optimal ways to play Battle Mage. And we saw some really, really optimal Battle Mage plays in the Archon Arena tournament the first weekend. And that was really cool to see like these really powerful, really great plays. And it was just reminding me how bad I am at actually playing that deck. Just never being sure. When you're like following lines and there's a dozen of them and you're like, I would do this one for sure. And then they don't do it. And then they win because they didn't take your line. It was like, just a good reminder of the fact that I never figured that deck out very well. But speaking of Archon, so the presumably maybe one of the last TESL tournaments, not real sure. It is sponsored by Bethesda, so they are involved. They're giving out. I think they're helping out with some rewards for the tournament. So Justin LMAO has launched a new brand called Archon Arena, and this is so I've gotten some chance to talk to him in the background on this. So this is like a tournament type of thing only, right? So like, this isn't like his new brand. This is his sort of like tournament esports brand. And I guess there's not many sort of like esports team type things that are doing tournaments across multiple games or organizing tournaments across multiple games. So this is like his toe in the water, starting off probably at the end of Tesla's life is one of the safest places to start. So he started a tournament. So it was this past Saturday. And then when this episode comes out, it'll be tomorrow is the next qualifier, and then there'll be 2 more. So the 4 winners of the qualifiers will go into the finals, and then the people with the 4 highest point totals will also be invited to the finals on week 5, which I think is like one of the first weekends in February, in which there is initially a $50 cash prize for the winner, but then also a good deal of the proceeds from any tips or I don't know if it's subs or exactly what it is, but different things that will bits and tips that come into the stream throughout the 4 weeks, 5 weeks of the tournament. Will get then put into the pot for the winner. So you don't really know what that's going to come out to. He'll probably announce that closer to the end. But yeah, so that was been pretty cool. And DBN, you got a chance to play in week 1 of that tournament. So what was that experience like?
Oh, it was really fun, and I was glad that I did. You know, we were talking about stuff. I think I was watching your stream, and you were talking about how you were going to cast. I was like, oh, that's really cool. I was like, I probably can't make, because I was so used to tournaments starting at noon, and I have never been able to do things at noon on Saturdays because I either coach in the mornings or I go to pickup and play Ultimate in the mornings, and I'm never ready to get started at noon, right?
Sure.
But then you mentioned it was at 2:00, and I said, oh, it's at 2:00. I mean, I could play in it. And then you were like, yeah, I mean, there's not, a lot of, it doesn't seem like there's been a lot of people signed up. And if they have, and if people are going to sign up, they're waiting to the last minute. And I was like, oh, well, I'll sign up. Sure. Right. And, if I have to, because the thing was I had work in the evening on Saturday. And so I knew if I went to the finals, I probably would have to scoop. And then I was like, which is why I was thinking I wouldn't do it. And I was like, well, who cares? It's not a big deal.
Sure.
I'll just scoop I'll just forfeit if I have to leave, and that's such a big if anyways. So yeah, I was like, all right, I'll play, but I'm not playing seriously. I said, I'm not going to take the super meta tryhard decks. And note, this is not a trying to insult anyone who did do that. Kudos, and I probably would have done that if I had time to prepare. But since this was Friday night at midnight,
yeah,
I was like, well, screw it. I'm not going to try to prepare. That's not going to work anyways. I said, all right, so I'm going to pick 3 off-meta decks that I think can win. Yes. 3 off-meta decks that I think I can win with, and that would be good enough maybe with the element of surprise. And so I picked my bread and butter, which I genuinely think is an incredibly powerful deck. It's just really hard to learn the intricacies of. But one of my favorite decks I've ever built, this is a completely homebrew, is my Cloak and Daggerfall, which is a Daggerfall mid-range item list, which kind of combines some of the mid-BM tools, Mighty Conjurings and stuff like that, but it combines it with the item packages and the draw packages of Enchanted Plate, Tome of Alteration, alongside Master of Arms, and then it just has very similar controls. Of course, you get to add Sorcerer's Negation, which BM doesn't have, and then you still have some easy removal. You have the Shackles from Harpy, you have Shackles from Mace of Encumbrance, so it does everything I think that mid-BM does, but because we're going over to Battle Mage, you get access to a ton of great item stuff. Because we're going to Daggerfall, we get a ton of great item stuff, and then can also include Battle Mage cards like Merrick and things like that. And Sorcerer can, of course, filter in the purple stuff, which gives you the draw off the Enchanted Plates. And just as this awesome cycle, you can tutor things out with the Crucible Blacksmith. It's got a lot of one-of items, so mobilize items that I can drop on curve if I want, if it's just in my hand, I don't have a 2-drop. Well, this has mobilize, I'll drop it down. If I have items like... I need to shackle something. I'll play Crucible Blacksmith. I'll go grab Mace of Encumbrance. I need to draw. I'll grab a tome or a plate. I need to silence. I'll grab my 1 copy of Bone Bow. I need to heal. I'll grab my, is it not Dawnbreaker? Dawnfang, right? So it's just got this massive, awesome toolbox that Crucible Blacksmith can go and pull from. And I don't know. I really love it. I think it's good. I think the deck I think it requires a lot of skill to play and really just a lot of familiarity with it to play optimally. But I was like, I'm going to play that. And then I said, all right. And then you were like, you should play Reanimator Scout. And I was like, all right, okay, well, let me see your list. And so you showed me your list, and I was like, all right, let me make some changes and then I'll play this. So we kind of looked at it, and I brought the curve down. And actually, spoiler alert, I brought the curve down even further afterwards. I felt like I didn't have enough early game presence, from the list that we even had. It ended up, the one game I played with it ended up just getting overrun by aggro, and that's all right. Aggro was a bad matchup for me anyways. I wanted to play mid-range and control. And then my last deck was, and I was really hoping Neon Greensleeves would have been watching, but it turns out he didn't, and he found out later. Oh, no. I know. Was Craggle Pants, which is basically... was it
Doomcrag?
Doomcrag, right? Thank you. Doomcrag, Vampire, Warrior, and using the Black Soul Gems to get some hand buffs going for Dinner Necromancers, and the Faded Wraiths, which is the draw package.
We actually got one of your matches playing that and winning with that deck on stream. I think. Oh, maybe we got you losing with it. I can't remember. We got one with you playing.
I think you guys were spectating because I played it once and won. I think you guys were spectating that, and then I played it in the second match, and I ended up losing with it because I drew through 2/3 of my deck and never saw a Doomcrag. If I'd had it, I think I would have had that game too.
I think so as well. Yeah, all of the removal and no Doomcrag.
Yeah, but I was playing. I got to play Mary Wall of Storms, which is awesome because Mary is a super cool person, and has done a lot of stuff within the community. So I got to play Mary, and we went to a game 3, and then I was able to win with my Cloak and Daggerfall because Mary banned the Reanimator list, which I think was smart considering the lineup. But it was fun, man. I mean, it was fun. And then I went to the next round, and I went up against triple aggro, and I think I made a mistake not banning Robo Spellsword, so like robot token Spellsword, and I made the mistake because I felt like I didn't have enough ways to remove supports, and so what happened both games, I banned a burn aggro face assassin, which runs like blood sacraments and all that crazy stuff to just smork you down, and my control decks didn't have a lot of quick healing and had a lot of slow healing, so like Necromancer's Amulets and Doomcrag,
which can often become overwhelmed by a burn assassin,
right? And so it was between that and the spell sword, and the problem, and I almost stabilized against the spell sword with Doomcrag, but I couldn't. I was looking for a Dushnik, but the issue was the Halls of the Dwemer. Halls of the Dwemer came down on 6 both games, and I was just like, oh god, And so in hindsight, I think I would have put Shadowfens in the Reanimator list. I would have put Shadowfens in my Cloak and Daggerfall. Although I do have like 1 or 2 Dushniks in Cloak and Daggerfall, but that's not quite enough if I was going to run into something like that.
Deck, you need a little more removal for those supports.
Right, and I think what I should have done is banned that and taken my chances against the Assassin, which can sometimes run out of cards before they can assemble all the burn pieces. So I wish I'd done that, made that ban choice. But by the time that game was over, I probably had to be getting ready for work anyways. So it was cool. It was cool anyways. I got a match casted, which I haven't done in over a year. I haven't had one of my tournament matches casted. It was fun. I got to show off Doomcrag. It was... I had so much fun. And, I went back and actually watched some of the casting. And you guys all did a really good job. It was a lot of fun. It was a really fun environment of people just kind of talking and sharing their love of Tessel and looking at all the cool games and stuff. It just felt very much like, man, I miss this. I wish we would have had this all the time, in throughout Tessel's existence, because I think it was also, I very much like I felt like Team Rankstar put on great tournaments. I was involved in them, but it was always like, okay, here's and warp meta, but think about like the situation of like all of those things were without support, and you just start to wonder like what could have been had there been these tournaments, what it did is it reminded me how fun tournaments were, how great of a time the community members seemed to have had watching them, and they seemed to be having a great time in chat. And it just reminded me, because it's been so long since I'd been able to participate in or even watch a Warp Meta event. But even then, by the end, everybody was getting all burned out on Invade and, no lack of knowledge. And then when the game news came out, the last Warp Meta was very bittersweet, So just, I don't know. It was exciting.
I think one of the fun things about it, right, is that Warp Meta was kind of the only thing that we had to determine what the meta was.
Yeah.
And there was no pressure to figure out what the meta was during this.
No. Yeah. Is it like a lack of pressure? Yeah.
Yeah, there was just like, hey, let's just get together and have some fun and play. and people will play some Tessel, and it was great. So I got the opportunity to cast. LMAO asked me if I'd be willing to cast. So me and LMAO and Sir Prook casted it. There was, with anything, the first time you do something, there's some technical issues. So LMAO was dealing with some technical issues in the background, and so most of the casting was done by Sir Prook and I. And I actually had a great deal of fun with that. Just like trying to figure out how to pronounce people's names on stream, which I absolutely butchered, which honestly I could probably start a YouTube channel of just me trying to pronounce screen names. And people would enjoy that because it's quite comical, because I just am bad at sounding out words. I want to give a shout out to Windorm, who was the winner of the first round of the qualifier. Did a really great job. That was the pilot of that incredible Battle Mage deck. Just running really solid decks and just running really well. And I think that where was the guy we were talking about who has plays in Russian tournaments and has not lost a Russian tournament since like Master Series or something. Has won all of them. Like any one, he's won it. And so he is an excellent player, a very high legend player as well. And it was cool. We had a lot of I sort of expected most players who were playing High Legend to not be in the tournament and to not really show interest. But we had a lot of people who were really good players and content creators who just loved the game and just came to show up and play. And I had an absolute blast casting it. I wish it's something that I was able to give 5 or 5.5 hours to every Saturday. And if I could, I would. I can't. But it was something that was just really enjoyable. I had a lot of fun doing it. I don't know. I think that my personality type, being fairly gregarious, that it's a good fit for doing something like that because I don't like awkward silence, and I'll definitely fill a space. And I like talking about it, but I also love joking about it and keeping things lighthearted. I'm not overly analytical. So hopefully some people were able to sort of connect with me as a caster. I don't know if they were or not, but I know that I had a tremendous amount of fun doing it. And one of my biggest pet peeves with casters is when casters get off subject and they're not talking about anything anymore. And so I was trying to do my best to not get too off subject. And I could definitely rabbit trail into like different stories. Here's a great, for example, something that DBN doesn't know about me is I also used to boulder, but not in a climbing room. And I fell from like 35 foot up without any gear on. And my younger brother broke my fall and let me land on him. And a week after I fell, another guy climbing without gear fell from the exact same place, landed on a rock and broke his back and had to be life flighted, and was paralyzed. So
my God.
I got really, really lucky. I climbed for like 35 minutes and I literally was hanging on this rock until I physically didn't have the strength to hold on anymore, and I felt my hands slip off as I was gripping with everything that I had, and came down. That has nothing to do with Tessel, just like a little bouldering note. And the reason I pucker up every time I try to climb a tree now. So
yeah,
that made me a little bit nervous about. I was like fearless with heights until that day when I fell off the top of that rock, and have been a little afraid of heights ever since.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Very thankful for my brother, who ended up with a couple of bruised ribs, but likely saved me from breaking both of my legs. So very thankful to my brother for that. But yeah, so being able to cast a tournament was a lot of fun. I've never played in a Tesla tournament. I wish I had the time over the next couple of Saturdays that I could afford to jump in and play in one of the Archon tournaments. But definitely keep your ear to the ground for Archon. Right now, that's being streamed over LMAO's channel. So you can find his Twitch channel is ELEMAYO. You can find his Twitch channel. I think it's twitch.tv/LMAO.
Mm-hmm.
But there is going to be an Archon Arena channel, and he is planning on doing some MTG Arena tournaments potentially. I think some other stuff. He had talked about. I don't think there's anything concrete. Like, he doesn't know exactly what they're going to do, but I think there's a handful of different games, card games, and other games that he'd like to sort of adventure into. So make sure you get out there and check out Archon Gaming. Jump into LMAO's Discord and check out that stuff, what he's doing there. Definitely a good thing to check out, especially if you're looking for what games to move on to next. Because he's going to be doing some stuff in a couple of different games, and that's exciting to me. So yeah. It was an inconvenient time to relaunch a brand in Elder Scrolls Legends, but maybe the fact that the pressure was off and these can be some fun tournaments means that it was actually the perfect timing. You never know.
Yeah, so. Hopefully. And I felt like the production value from what I got to watch was very, very high. So,
the stuff that he's putting out, like graphically, is absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
Absolutely fantastic. There's some glitches in the back end and some audio glitches that got to get figured out, I think, and he's been working steadily on that, and I'm helping him where and if I can. But the production of that is only going to get better. So I think that those will be fun tournaments to watch, even if you're not playing the games that the tournaments are about, because he'll have some fun people casting with him, and it should be enjoyable. I'm not even really sure who the casters are for this Saturday, and who the players are, but I know that there's some returners from week 1 who are coming back to play again who didn't win. So I can't remember. Was it Doran Austin? That's close enough. Who was in the end and in the finals, and we had a great series finals. It was a fantastic finals. So had a tremendous amount of fun casting that. So yeah, hats off to Archon. I think that LMA is doing a fantastic job there. So we did say that this episode was for the drifters, the refugees, the orphans of Tessel. Who are looking for a new place to go. So, DBN, do you have any new games that you're really looking forward to, or anything new that you've been exploring or spending a little bit more time in?
Well, I've been, as I've always been, besides Tessel, been playing Gwent and Mythgard, and Legend of the Five Rings, which I'm going to just take a second. It's not a digital card game, but if you have a local shop that supports, they have a Legend of the Five Rings group, right now it's my favorite card game maybe ever. I absolutely love it. And unfortunately, my clan just got the crap beat out of it in the recent balance update. It feels like we got both feet cut off. It's really rough. They have a banned list, which is very, very small, like 4 cards on it. And maybe I think it's more than 4 cards, but bottom line is they have a banned list of like 6 or 7 cards. And then they have a restricted list where in your deck, you can only run 1 restricted card. So if it's on the restricted list, you can only run, you can run up to however many copies are allowed. But you can only have 1 restricted list card in your deck.
Oh, very interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying now. I didn't understand it first. I get it now.
Right. So banned just means you can't play it at all, no matter what. And unfortunately, one of my favorite cards that was on the restricted list went onto the banned list, which is rough. And then unfortunately also there's basically there was 2 ways to play Crane, my clan. One was the one that I played, which was the less popular one, but the one that I felt suited my playstyle perfectly, which my restricted list guy got banned, and so now it's kind of like, well, there's no point in playing this deck anymore. But the other one that I just sort of started playing, which was the more like meta build, 4 of its cards ended up on the restricted list.
Oh,
which
so you can only play one of those 4.
Yeah, like 4 very integral cards, and so now it's like it's exciting in one fashion because I'm like, well, back to the drawing board. Who knows what we're gonna come up with? But it's also frustrating because it's like, oof. I mean that's a big nerf to the clan, the faction. You know,
Yeah,
and
big
I
time.
casually play other factions, but I've never played in a tournament where I didn't play Crane. It's just, I mean, there's part of L5R, part of the fun part is faction loyalty, you know, which is heavily encouraged, you know. And so, I mean, I've been a Crane for like since I started playing super casually with my dad, buying starter decks like in like 7th grade, you know.
Yes.
So I've been a Crane for forever. So it does suck when the Crane gets hurt. But anyways, all I'm going to say is Legend of the Five Rings is an incredible game. And so if you're looking for a paper card game and you have a group nearby, go check it out. I'm sure those people will be able to be like loan you a deck so you can learn. But it's a very, very deep, very complex game, and your choices 100% matter. Like it's so there's so many lines, and so many lines that are conceivably correct. You know what I mean? But they have these rippling effects. It's just, it's a brilliantly designed game. So I'm just going to throw that plug in there first. But been playing Gwent, been playing Mythgard. That's nothing new. We can talk about those games kind of in summary if we want later in the episode. But I got messaged on Twitter by a guy right after, like a week after Tessel got canceled. And the guy was like, hey, I came across your YouTube channel and thought it was really cool, and but I did notice that you mostly support Tessel, and Tessel has just kind of gone out. Would you like to check out our game? And I was like, okay. And I messaged the guy back, well, thanks for letting me know about it. I'll check it out. I don't know if I'll make content for it, and I still don't. But I'll check it out. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I appreciate it, right? It's called World of Myths, not Call of Myth. World of Myths. Yes. I guarantee you haven't heard of it.
No, I don't think so.
It is a Steam game.
Okay.
So you can get it on Steam. It's free to download. And I have to say, graphically, it's not particularly impressive.
Okay.
The user interface is a little bit clunky, and I'm not a fan of it. And the theme is just okay. It's very interesting in one facet, which is basically you're controlling a mythology, right? So the factions are mythologies. So, for instance, Greek, Japan. So right now there's 4, I think. There's Greek, there's Japanese, and they're adding Egyptian soon. Greek, Japanese. Ooh, you can tell which ones I've played. Mesoamerican.
Yeah, it looks
and
like maybe like Norse is
and Norse, yes,
one of them? Yeah,
yes, Norse. So you can tell I've mostly played Greek and Japanese, but Mesoamerican's really cool too. I think Norse, it does not interest me personally from my playstyle perspective, but I've been playing that game more than I thought I would.
Huh?
Because from a game design perspective, it is so different from anything else out there. Like, it's fascinating. It really, really is. Basically, in short, you put units on the board. You can only have up to 5 units. And units have power, and they have endurance. And usually between 1 and 5. Sometimes the power gets higher, but endurance caps at 5. And endurance is the number of times it can attack or defend against enemy or in conflicts. So if you attack, it uses one of their endurance. If you defend, it uses one of their endurance, right? And occasionally there's effects that can remove an endurance from a card. But once it's out of endurance, it dies. And so
so it sort of like retires off the board almost.
Yeah, exactly. And so they kind of, your board cycles naturally, but kind of strategically using the endurance on your characters and understanding, okay, like if this character loses an endurance, I won't be able to defend with them if I then want to be able to attack on my next turn, right? And so you assign your attackers, and then your opponent assigns their defenders, kind of like in Magic in many ways. But the cool part is that you target one of 3 temples that your opponent has, and each temple is the same. Both players start with the same temples, the same health on each of those temples, but those temples, left, middle, and right, have different effects if you damage them. Every time you deal even just 1 damage, not destroy, but anytime you deal any amount of damage to them, you get an effect. And so if you damage their rightmost temple, your rightmost character gains an endurance. If you damage their leftmost temple, your leftmost character gets to attack. And if you damage their middle, they have to choose a character to die. And so it's this super dynamic situation where it's not just managing your board and your characters, when they're going to leave the board, but also figuring out what advantages you can create by targeting the different temples and how your opponent will defend differently based on which temple you're going to attack.
So real quickly, we had a moment delay there because I think my internet dropped out for a hot second.
Uh-oh.
So I caught most of it, but I think the part that we may have missed was the temple part. So tell us real quickly about just the temples. Is that how you win the game, is by destroying your opponent's temples?
Yeah, so there's 3 temples, and once they're all dead, you win.
Okay. So there's but there's not lanes like we have in Tessel and some other card games.
Nope. But the positioning.
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, but the positioning does matter. So like in Hearthstone, because first off, 2 of the temple effects, I'm not sure if you caught this.
I don't think we caught this. No.
So each temple has a different effect when you damage it. There's 3 temples. So if you attack the middle temple, and you don't have to destroy it to get this effect, you just have to have at least 1 damage go through, right? And if the temple gets damaged or destroyed, the effect will go off. And the middle temple, once you deal damage, your opponent has to choose one of their remaining creatures and destroy it. So that one's obviously, but if you have a chump blocker, like some cheap nobody, then it's not very appetizing to go after that middle temple, And keep in mind, if your opponent's characters have 1 endurance, even if they have 1 really big guy with 1 endurance, if you attack that middle temple, either they defend and the guy dies from losing his last endurance, or you hit the temple and the guy dies because you hit the temple, right? Sure. So you have to constantly be monitoring not just your board but their board to figure out which temples will they be willing to defend and which temples will they say, I don't care about defending this. Right. And sometimes you were like, I don't want them contesting. I just want to get the damage to. Sometimes you're like, please contest. I want you to burn endurance. Right. And so the leftmost temple, when you damage it, you get +2 attack to your leftmost character. And if you damage the rightmost temple, you get 1 endurance on your rightmost character. So positioning the characters totally matters. And in some of the effects, there's like a great, mostly Greek, but I think Japanese also has it, a keyword called center. And if there's a character, it gets a bonus of whatever the center bonus is, usually increased stats, if there's a character to the left and right of it, aka if it's on the center. There's also a flanking one. So Greek has a lot of those guys. Flanking bonus. If your character's on the edge, they get a bonus. And so obviously you have neutral cards, but you also have mythology cards, specific cards, typical faction cards plus neutrals, right? Sure. But you also have leaders, kind of like in Gwent. But the leaders are super cool because they have really powerful and highly diverse effects. And they can be summoned to the battlefield to fight on your side for a turn. And while they're on the battlefield, if your opponent can kill them, you lose the game. Right? So it's always a risk reward. If I summon my leader, I can get whatever benefit. And some leaders, a lot of the Mesoamerican leaders really like to be on the battlefield. A couple of the Norse leaders also like to lead from the front, right? While some of the Japanese leaders never want to see the battlefield. They don't want to be at risk. They don't lend really much at all to the battle. So it's just, it's fascinating. And some of the leaders, like the one I've really been liking is Amaterasu, from the sun goddess, from Japanese mythology. I think, don't quote me on that. I'm not a mythology person. Yeah. But I think that's Amaterasu. And what that one does is whenever you play a creature with a unique type, like a unique tribal, it gets an extra endurance. And so I'm playing a deck with like 5 or 6 different types and playing those creatures so they stick around for even longer. And then I have cards that are payoff cards. Like I have this little fox spirit, and the fox spirit that comes down says, each creature with a unique type, it's give a creature +1 attack for each type you have. And then there's a priest that buffs everyone for each, everyone that has a unique type. And so it's all about having, managing your board of 5 creatures to have as many different types of creatures out at one time as possible, which is just super fun. But there's other builds that want to have all the same type of creature. And then like Ares from the god of war or whatever wants to have always have flanking bonuses for their characters. It's just, it's so cool. And it's so different from everything else that's out there that it's just, I can't stop playing it.
Huh. Well, I'm going to be downloading that game tonight.
Okay.
That's getting added to my Steam account. I'm going to be checking that one out for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at it. So like I'm big Norse mythology guy. I've read a lot about Norse mythology. Like in almost everything I do, I play a Viking type character. I'm a Nord in ESO. I'm a Nord in Elder Scrolls Legends. Like that the Norse mythology has always been intriguing to me, and mythology in general is intriguing to me. So I'll definitely be digging on checking this out a little bit, because that's a theme that gets me out of bed, right? That's a theme that I want to check out for sure, which I'm looking at. So the game that I have been checking out a little bit is one that I told people they shouldn't, but I needed a walk down memory lane. Now I realize that this isn't the case for everybody, but it is for me. Grew up playing Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, I thought that's where we were going.
Yeah, and I've really been jonesing to not have enough lands to play the creatures in my hand. So I got my fix. I downloaded MTG Arena and started messing around a little bit on that. So a couple of things to say. One, I'm not going to be investing a significant amount of time, energy, or finances into MTG Arena. It is probably a more expensive game than what the other games are that I play. I've only played it a little bit. And realistically, I think they give you 4 or 5 starter decks that have some, each have like a rare or 2 in them, and they're basically a starter deck that you would just pick up in the store, standard starter deck. And my knowledge of Magic the Gathering and deck building from playing it for a decade has basically allowed me at the MMR that I'm at to trash on anybody with the crappy cards that I have. And so I've been playing like Black Vampires, and a tremendous amount of fun playing that, and I've really enjoyed it. But when the thing that I thought was unique was we saw the Chinese client for Elder Scrolls Legends, and it came with a battle pass, and I said, "Oh, I love that idea. Battle pass seems super cool." And then I got into Magic the Gathering Arena, and it also has a battle pass. And if you own most of the cards and you don't mind spending money on a game, then a battle pass looks really great. If you don't own any cards and you don't want to spend any money on the game, a battle pass feels horrible. So I will just say this: I don't like it. I thought that I would, but I do not like a battle pass in card games. Yes, it gives you more rewards, but jumping in, what I really wanted to be able to do is maybe spend $4 or $5 or $6 or $10 on a viable deck that I could, jump in with and mess around with a little bit, and that doesn't exist in this. They want you to jump in on the battle pass to earn packs of cards that way, and it's not cheap to be able to do. So it's not going to be a regular card game of mine, but it is one that whenever I'm bored with the games that I'm playing and I want to get that little bit of that Magic the Gathering fix, the game that I knew and loved so much, I'll go play a really junky starter deck against, other players who are new to the game and playing some starter decks, and enjoy a little bit of that. I will say this: they did a good job on the interface. It's a really pretty game. And if you don't know much about Magic the Gathering, it's probably horribly confusing. I just like the concept of the stack, how things go off, when you can play things, when you can't play things, all of that stuff probably would be very, very confusing. And I went through the tutorial and I was like, this is fine for me because it was maybe a little bit of a refresher, if not a little bit boring, for someone who has been an MTG player. But if you're not an MTG player and you download this game, this tutorial really only scratches the surface of the complexity of Magic the Gathering. So I don't know, I earned a couple of packs on the game, and I'll probably go back and play it, here or there. It's not going to become a regular card game, but until a couple of these other card games come out that I'm really interested in, I'm gonna play Legends and dabble around on MTG Arena a little bit. So I know I said I wouldn't suggest it, but if you're like me and you are an old Magic the Gathering player, like late 90s, early 2000s MTG player, and I know there's some people who've been playing back since like the 80s, late 80s, but if you're in that boat and you don't play anymore and you don't own cards anymore, you don't have anybody to play with, downloading MTG Arena just for nostalgia's sake, just to feel the feel of playing that land and putting out those creatures and choosing your blockers was worth it. I had a lot of fun with it. So definitely going to be checking out this World of Myths, though, because everything that you said about that sounds pretty intriguing.
Yeah, I will say the tutorial is not great. Like,
no.
The tutorials for... Well, I was talking about World of Myths, but...
Oh, World of Myths. Oh, okay.
Yeah, the tutorial's not great. You're going to want to... If you have any questions, ask me. In fact, that goes for anyone. I do think the game is really cool. There's a lot of depth, and I want to make content for it, even though I know probably no one will watch it. But I want to kind of show people that the game exists, because I think there's... It's the thing with Mythgard too. Like, I think Mythgard is getting a lot of attention from TRS from some very visible people, namely Aeolus, who was Aeolus was a godsend to the Mythgard team. I truly believe that, and got a lot of people, including myself, hooked on it. I mean, Mythgard's a great game, and obviously if people are interested in that, especially the people in our Discord and listeners and stuff, feel free to message me on that, ask me questions. I don't post a lot in our Mythgard section of the Discord that we have, mostly because I just kind of play, and I'm not super high up on the ladder. I got to gold, and I was like, all right, I'm don't need to stress about it yet. But I am really enjoying it, and I'm happy to answer questions about it. I do feel like their tutorial is actually quite good. World of Myths, but I will say, is doing things with card games that I feel like a lot of other people aren't, which is trying to do something different and original. Where I think Mythgard is really doing a good job of taking the concepts that people like and really refining them and removing the problems inherent with, standard Magicka increase, 1 mana crystal per turn, which we've seen problems with in Hearthstone and Tessel, but also dealing with I have lands and I can't afford things because I'm either mana starved or mana flooded, because it seems like there's only 2 states of mana in Magic: mana starved or mana flooded.
Never perfect.
It's and so like really refining and taking these concepts that everyone's familiar with and doing a great job at making it, solving those problems, but still paying it honor to the concept, where I think World of Myths is doing an awesome job of just being wholly original and doing things differently, which I absolutely adore and respect the hell out of. So I will say though, I played some Magic over the break.
Oh yeah?
Are you surprised to hear that?
I am very, because you haven't been a Magic Gathering player at all, right?
No. And I did not play Magic the Gathering Arena. I played Magic the Gathering, the paper version.
Sure.
My sister and some of her friends have started kind of doing Magic, playing Magic, her boyfriend in particular. And so my sister has been kind of playing as well. And so I sat down and I was playing with her when I went to my parents' house for Christmas and stuff, playing some of my old crappy, completely not legal decks, and kind of having fun with that. And we both went and bought a starter deck and just were playing starter decks against each other. I love doing that. Just buy a starter deck and play against each other, and just with the starter deck, and it's fine.
That may be the funnest place that Magic is. Like that may be the funnest way to play Magic, in my opinion.
Yeah. And then over New Year's, I was hanging out with my sister and her boyfriend, and we played like a three person Magic game, which was a lot of fun too. I won. I was very pleased. As a card game content creator, I asserted my dominance.
Showed them.
Yeah.
Showed them what's up.
Right. But I will say, as fun as the social aspect was, I just still don't like the game. Like the social part is the fun part, and I was just like, the game is bad. Like fun, maybe nostalgic, probably, but I feel like Magic at this point exists only because it was first, and had it been anywhere else along the competitive card game lines, would have died by now. The land system is just bad. It's just not good. And if that's the primary thing, I mean, half your deck don't do anything interesting, you know? And half your
Yeah.
deck, you know, it's just, oh gosh, there's a reason why when Hearthstone came out, it just said, well, we're just going to solve that by everyone gets 1 mana crystal. They don't have to spend cards on it. I don't know. I mean, I can certainly get why people like to play it, especially at the hobby stores and stuff like that. It's the same reason I go to play L5R. Besides L5R being a strictly superior game, go in there and play with friends and have fun, and the social aspect is incredible, you know? And I think there's a lot of that to offer for Magic. It's a great gateway card game, in my opinion. You know, it's kind of, I think the basics are easy to pick up, you know?
Yeah, there is the biggest issue with Magic the Gathering is the complexities of the stack. And if you're not familiar with Magic the Gathering, you don't know what the stack is. This is basically the sequence of events that causes actions to happen as you play cards from your hand. And this gets down to the nitty-gritty of, was a colon placed before the mana cost or after the mana cost? Is there a black, like a filled in circle on the mana cost, or a blank circle? Like little intricacies like that make the difference of how a card is played and what priority it has on the stack over other cards. Which is crazy. Like these little teeny intricacies just in the way that the card is typed that make the difference in the way that the card is played. There is a significant amount. Now, if you just want to grab a couple of starter decks, sit down, learn the rules from the guides, and play a couple of games, it is a good entry level game. It's a lot of fun and it's easily accessible. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, like for me, it's a nostalgia thing. You know, I played a ton of Magic with my friends growing up. You know, every weekend, grabbing our decks, suboptimal, terrible decks, sitting down, you know, playing my vampire deck, playing my beast deck, playing these decks that I love. My buddy, you know, Joe had his goblin deck. My buddy Hunter had his like control blue mill deck that everybody hated. You know, we got together and we played our decks all the time, and that it was so much fun. And I would, you know, pour out my collection on the ground, and I would sort through it and organize it, and then and build a couple of decks, and then play against myself just to like get some time testing out decks and stuff. And as a kid, there was so much fun involved in that. There was so much creativity, which spurred me to love card games. and so walking back into it, even just putting a finger in it, right, was really enjoyable. It's too expensive to keep up with. I won't keep up with it, but just for nostalgia's sake, sometimes it's good to go back to something that makes you feel like you're in 7th grade again, you know? And so I really enjoyed that. But one of the games that I'm really excited about is another game that has Myth in it, and that is a game called Call of Myth. This is a game that's being put together by a small international team that is working on a Cthulhu-themed or Lovecraft mythos-themed card game, digital card game, that is going to be coming out hopefully in beta sometime in 2020 and coming out formally in 2021. This game is beautiful. It looks great. If you like the Cthulhu mythos, it's right up your alley. I personally didn't know anything about Cthulhu mythos until I started getting into board gaming, and really love the Cthulhu mythos now. And I've never read Lovecraft's books, but I love the theme of the horror and the madness and the betrayal and the unspeakable monsters and the old gods and the quirky investigators and sort of like the old timey feel of like the, I don't know, early 1900s or something. I don't know when it's set. But it's a lot of fun. And the cool part is that the genre, the IP, intellectual property, is open source, so anybody can use it, which is why, you know, there's basically a board game of every variety from every publisher now in the Cthulhu mythos, because it's a theme that people absolutely adore and they want to play in that you don't have to pay for. And so the Call of Myth team is putting a card game together for that. I've been spending some time in their Discord, and I'm really excited about that game coming out. That's one that I'm really looking forward to in this next year. Hopefully, if they put out a beta, I can kind of get in on that and check it out, because it looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've looked at it, not super in depth. It seems like every time they put out promotional content for it, the board is like stuffed full of cards, and I have no idea what the heck is going on. And it seems like there's like 17 actions going off at once. It seems like a high APM game, and like decking out your opponent might be a core component of it. I've heard.
I hope not. I know that's the case with the other game, or Casa.
Oh, maybe I'm mixing that up then.
Was decking out. Yeah, Casa was decking out your opponent. Now, Call of Myth does have a confusing looking board because it has multiple lanes, not left and right, but up and down, kind of like Gwent does.
Yeah.
So you have a front line, and then you have a gunslinger lane. Oh. And so you can play gunslingers in the back lane, and then like melee characters in the front lane, and then you have versatile characters that can be played in either the gunslinger or
Versus
the
system
lane.
did that like a long time ago. Yeah. They had a front lane and a back lane. If you had range, you could be in the back lane, or the front lane. And then if you had flying, you could attack their back lane.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if they have flying.
There's some
effects.
of that, and I think there's like a couple of different factions. There's like the old gods, the outer gods, the cultists maybe, and the humans. And I can't remember exactly what it is, but I think that's interesting because you could kind of get
Factions.
in with one of those. So I think that Call of Myth looks intriguing to me. One of the cool parts is this is different than almost any other card game that I've played, and that is you have an attack, a health, and a sanity. And cards can deplete your sanity, and when your sanity gets depleted, I think that you can like turn into another card actually. And you can kind of go insane, or like negative things can go off for you. So you're trying to like, I just think that's cool. I like that they've integrated the sanity, which is a major component in any Cthulhu Mythos game. So the fact that they brought sanity in it in a unique way, I think could be really fun. They really honestly have released very little about the game except for artwork. They've put out like a couple of like images of like the boards, and the boards do look confusing, but they're not really explaining anything that's happening.
Yeah.
What they have put out is a good many images of the artwork, and the artwork
looks good.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. I hope that they can create a good interface and stuff for it, because that's a game I'll definitely check out. Here's a card game that I did play and I've never talked about on the show, and I don't know if you know this. It's called Age of Sigmar Champions. Have you ever heard of or checked out that game at all, DBN?
Definitely not.
So Age of Sigmar Champions is a card game in the 40K universe. So the Warhammer universe has a 40K universe, and then they have a Age of Sigmar universe, which is their fantasy version of 40K. And so here's the only thing I'm going to say about it. This game has a pretty unique mechanic in that as you play cards, you play them to one of 4 lanes, and you each have 4 leaders, and you're trying to eliminate your opponent's leaders. So there's 4 lanes with 4 leaders, and you can play 1 card to each lane. And when you play a card, it has 4 corners on it. And at the start of each of your turns, your cards all rotate once, like 90 degrees. And whatever corner comes up goes off. And so that could be an attack, that could be an ability, that could be a heal. Something's going to happen when it turns to a new corner until it finishes turning corners and then retires. And you can't replace it with a new card until the card retires. And they have like between 2 and 4 corners on each one that do something. And so you can play it quick. It is an interesting game. It was super buggy whenever it first came out. I played it for a little while, but it was buggy enough that it didn't work real well, so I quit playing it. But if you do love Age of Sigmar, because there are some people out there who are just diehard Warhammer fans, if you're a diehard Warhammer fan and you love Age of Sigmar Champions is another card game that you can check out, because that might be one that interests people. One of the really cool things about that game is it's a physical card game as well. So you can go out and buy physical card packs and play the game physically, and then every single card you can scan in using your camera on your phone, and it will add the physical card to your digital collection.
That's cool.
So like, I
almost wish Magic did that.
Oh, yes.
Although, I think you can, if you buy a starter deck, I think you can scan that and you get the starter deck cards in the game. Because I thought I saw that on the back of the starter deck that I bought for
Magic deck.
Yeah.
Well, like, imagine if they did that with, like, Legend of the Five Rings. Like, if Fantasy Flight came out and made an L5R digital implementation.
Oh, my God, I'd be all over
and you
that.
could scan your L5R cards in to have copies of them in the digital game. Like, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it won't happen, but that would be cool. That would be very cool. Honestly, you can play Legend of the Five Rings online on this website called Jigoku. If
Okay.
if people want to go try it out and take a look at it, you can. I mean, you can find a match it's basically a publicly made fan project and it's a major, like, they run leagues and everything. Like, you can play Legend of the Five Rings totally online if you want. I just think you're missing out a little bit. And
Sure.
I mean, the game is, in my opinion, best in person. Like, I think most games would be if you could play them that way. It's also kind of a tough game to pick up and learn if you're like finding matches with people. But if you wanted to play with a friend, that would be a good way to play. I will say, I want to kind of return to the Call of Myths thing. I'm interested to see what's up with that. In the end, I try most card games, even if I'm skeptical, just because
Sure.
I love card games. And I'm more and more, I'm finding myself just fascinated by design and what it takes and like what is involved in like these different design choices and the kind of ripple of effect that has on the game itself, which is why games like World of Myths I find so intriguing, because there's so many different design elements than other games. It's like when I've seen something before, it's like, yeah, okay, I've seen this before. And then when I see someone do something new, it's like, this is awesome. That's partly why I like Mythgard so much.
Sure.
But I will say, one of the things about like the Lovecraftian horror genre, I have not read much. I've read exactly one short story, The Music of Eric Zahn. It was really good. It's a short story, so you can read it. And I'm pretty sure it is like a prelude to all of the Lovecraftian horror mythos, because I'm pretty sure like nothing really happens that like diehard fans would be like, oh yeah, this is totally X, Y, and Z. Like, there's no lore involved in it. It's just kind of a horror short story that you don't really understand why it's scary, but it's scary, right? It's like a taste. Like, the whole point of it is it's supposed to be like a taste. Like the main character, the protagonist, gets a taste and like dips out, right? But I will say, like, I played Bloodborne, which I am to understand is very heavily Lovecraftian influenced, and I absolutely adored Bloodborne. And I also really like Aberrations and Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I really like running Mind Flayers and Aboleths. I really love Aboleths, for those who are familiar. I like Elder Brains and cool things like that. And so I feel like I'm interested in the kind of like psychic horror thing, but what I found is when I have enjoyed it and when I found it to just be excessive has been when it is narratively driven, because I think that's kind of what like Stephen King does in horror, which is like you don't see the bad guy really for most of the thing, right? Or it's the anticipation that's the scary part, right? But like, I almost wonder if it's going to get taken away, the whole idea of it's unknowable, it's chaotic, it's driving you crazy, and like it's this giant, mental thing, and you're playing the cards, and oh look, here's the thing, and it does exactly this. Because in almost this weird way, it seems to completely contrast with the idea of, or at least what I understand, the idea of the kind of cosmic horror is, which is the idea of not knowing, right?
Sure.
And
sure.
if I know exactly what's on the card, there's no question of not knowing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I feel like they're gonna have to do something to really make that come across, to almost have a narrative element to the cards, or else I feel like it's going to come off odd. And that, like, I've played a couple of cosmic horror like board games, and it's always been like, well, the game could be really fun, but I don't know if the theme fits quite as well as it does when you're weaving a story around it,
Sure. I mean, this is why one of the absolute best board games out is Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition. And the reason for that is this is a Cthulhu-themed board game where you're exploring a mansion, but you are choosing a scenario because you're playing together as a co-op. You're choosing a scenario from an app, and then the app runs the game and narrates everything for you. And so there is this sense of exploration and this sense of the unknown every time that you play the game,
right?
That is just, keeps bringing you back because you're just not really sure what's going to happen next. You don't know what's inside that room. You don't know what room lies beyond this. You don't know what type of monster might spring if you go through that window or if you make that decision. And there's a sense of the unknown. And then you get this big box full of all these crazy looking monsters, and you almost never even pull them all out. But you know, if you just go through the wrong door at the wrong time, one of those big bads is going to come out. And all of the statistics for all of the monsters are hidden in the app. They're not on a card in the game.
Yeah.
So you can't just pull out. So what they do and the actions that they take are hidden in the app. So you don't know until the app tells you, and it might change what it does next time you encounter that creature. So
that's cool.
They've really captured the narrative of it. So I agree with that. My question for Call of Myth is really like, people are going to check it out because it's Cthulhu. But if they're not able to capture that narrative of the card game, which they probably won't be able to, they're only going to stick around if it's an excellent game.
True.
And if it's an excellent game with fantastic artwork with a theme that gets people to click the download button just to check it out, then I think that the game really does stand a chance, because the theme of the Cthulhu game really will draw people in. So I hope that it's successful. It's definitely going to be one of the games that I personally am going to be checking out. And a little announcement, one of the devs from the game are going to be on the show for an interview in the next week or two.
That's awesome, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be coming on and talking a little bit about the game. And in fact, you know, it would be awesome if even someone from this world of myths, if they wanted to get on and talk a little bit about their game, you know, to raise a little bit of awareness about the fact that it's out there. That could be cool too.
Yeah,
so,
I can probably reach out to the guy.
Yeah, that's our hope, is to help, you know, Legends players really move on to some new games, as DBN and I both sort of explore some new games. Which maybe one of the last announcements is, you know, that we are going to be getting a big announcement about Legends of Runeterra this week, I believe. So
yeah.
Riot Games just released that they're going to be putting out information on TFT, on League of Legends, and on Legends of Runeterra this week. And so hopefully by the next time we record an episode, there'll be some conversation around exactly, you know, when the release is going to be for the beta and how you can get in on that and what that's going to look like.
Yeah, so I'm excited to actually play it. I've watched a lot of videos, but I didn't get in to the last one, to the last beta.
Sure.
Which was, you know, I got to be honest, I was very surprised that there wasn't a question on the thing that said, are you a streamer or content creator? Because normally there is, and that's how I get into all the betas. You know?
Sure. Yeah.
And I was really bummed. I was really bummed that I couldn't say that and then get in, you know?
Yeah, I think that there's they'll be throwing a wide net the next time that they release beta keys, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I was hoping they weren't going to wipe it, but I've never been in a beta for a game, so I guess I should get used to multiple wipes of my collection.
I mean, and they'll tell you when they're not going to wipe.
Okay, and then you can be like, okay, I can invest now.
Yep.
I think I threw $5 their way, which I have.
Well, I think they usually will refund that in like packs or gems or whatever the currency is. If you spend money, that's the industry standard, anyways. Is if you spend that stuff, they basically give you the equivalent in new resources, usually packs or crafting
Sure, that
gems.
way you didn't just throw the $5 away and have your account wiped.
Yeah, when Gwent did the hard reset to Gwent Homecoming, I basically crafted everything in Monsters, the entire faction.
Oh, wow.
It was awesome. It was so awesome. Like, that's the only faction I have every card for at this point. You know, and I've spent money. Gwent is one of those ones, I mean, I know that's kind of off topic, but for the record, I love Gwent, and I was really excited when DT Blade started making Gwent videos. You guys can go check that out. I also drop a Gwent video every week, but it's not about me, all right? DT Blade is dropping Gwent videos, and he's just as into Monsters as I am, which is awesome, because Monsters is the best faction. Suck it, all the other factions.
Get out of here.
Yeah, get out of here. You all suck. Eat dirt. No, that's what monsters do. We eat flesh. Yeah. But no. You know, I will say my major criticism of Gwent is that once you have a baseline collection, right? Packs are super generous to build the collection, but they are really bad at finishing it, which just kills me. And so, like, you can get enough to play and build lots of different decks because the commons and the rares, you get like candy, you know?
Okay.
But completing the epics and completing the legendaries is just a chore. And I don't play a ton. But I do play, a couple games a night, and I'm like, these legendaries are killing me because the legendaries are so important to the archetypes that it's like if there's like 3 or 4 legendaries per faction per set, and there's 6 factions, and the drop rate's not incredible, the drop rate's like 1 in 30, I think you're guaranteed at that point, right? Similar to Hearthstone. So it's like it definitely feels a little frustrating to be like, well, I have no, like, if I open these packs, I have no use for any of these cards. I'm going to end up dusting the entire pack, right?
Yes, because you're trying to save up to get those legendaries.
Yeah, but it's and that's the thing that I felt about like Tessel was be like, if you're getting, even if you have a baseline collection, you'll still be finishing out your playset of rares, your playsets of epics, right? But like with Gwent, because 2 copies is a playset of your bronze cards, commons and rares, 2 copies is a playset, and for epics and legendaries, 1 copy is a playset, which means you finish your playsets of your bronzes and rares really fast.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you have to get 1 of each of all of the epics and legendaries still.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's tough to finish my collection. I've been getting a little frustrated with that. Although the gameplay and the deck building is still fantastic. I mean, it's not enough for me to get angry enough about the game. I just need to play more and finish my collections. But it also means with Gwent, I highly recommend focusing on 1 or 2 factions. Like, I focused on 2 factions predominantly, and I really want to be playing a third. But I play Monsters and Scoia'tael, and I really want to play Nilfgaard. But dang it, if there's so many legendaries I don't have in Nilfgaard. Ugh. Ugh.
Yeah, hard to branch over into that. Yeah, I mean, in most card games, if it's not going to be your primary card game, I do recommend also sort of like if it's your secondary one, especially, like just aggressively dust and get a deck that you like and that you can play when you're bored with the primary game that you're playing,
Yeah.
And Tessel will continue to be a game that I play in the background, although, hopefully I'll find a game that I love in 2020. That's kind of the goal, a new card game that's going to be in active development in 2020 that I love, and willing to explore some options to be able to find that. We've been going for almost an hour and a half here, man. I'm feeling like maybe we should sign out. This was sort of like a in-between episode. Like, we're probably going to find a game that we can agree on it that we want to make consistent content for. So we're going to be doing hopefully some interviews with some smaller games and some games that are in development over the next couple of weeks to a month or so. And then once we get a feel for where we want to go, we're going to be changing over, not the name and not the RSS feed, but we are going to be changing over some elements of the show, probably the logo and artwork and things. And we're going to be moving on to a new season of Legends Cast, in which we are going to be covering a new game. And we're not 100% sure what that is yet, because we don't know what game both me and DBN are going to fall in love with, and that people will actually consume content for. Because even if we both love the same game, if no one cares about it, we ain't wasting our time making a podcast. We'll just text back and forth and play it. And that'll be fine for the 2 of us. We don't need to spend hours a week recording about it. So hopefully we find a game that's good to make content about, and that'll happen here early in 2020. Anything that you want to say, man, before we? Well, you know what? I have a closing thought. Can I give a closing thought?
Yeah, dude, do it.
Okay. So I've been talking about this in the new year with some people. I know that there's a lot of people who aren't hot on New Year's resolutions. I'm pretty big on New Year's resolutions, and I've only really begun to get big on them in the last couple of months. I like to take some time at the end of the year to reflect on the previous year, sort of like, what the heck happened this past year? Did I do well? Did I do well? Did I reach my goals? Did I reach my goals? And then I look into the new year and forge some goals. And there's 2 reasons for that. One, there's a famous philosopher who said this, and I don't remember who it is. It might be like Kierkegaard or something. But my boss, my senior pastor, often says this, and he says, the unexamined life is not worth living, which has really rung true with me and stuck with me. And that's why I try to take time at the end of each year to examine my life. And the other thing he commonly says is that we often overestimate what we can accomplish in a day and underestimate what we can accomplish in a year. And I think with New Year's resolutions and plans for the next year and a fresh start, we often try to accomplish too much in a day whenever we have the year ahead of us. If we are intentional and purposeful about sort of pacing ourselves and pursuing things over a long period of time, which millennials and post-millennials are horrific at, just awful at, persevering at one thing over a long period of time. And so I think my encouragement is in my closing thought is like, look back at 2019, even if you're not a resolution setter, like take time to reflect on who you were and who you want to be. Because most of us have an ideal picture of who we're going to be when we grow up, no matter how old we are. And if you're not doing the things that will allow you to become that individual, then begin examining your life and looking at the incremental changes that you can make in the new year in 2020, because you will probably grossly underestimate what you can accomplish in the next 12 months. The next year can be completely and totally life altering and transformational for you if you will be intentional about making that happen. And so I think my encouragement is like reflect on 2019. 2020 is a big year. Reflect on 2019. Look forward into, and if you get the chance, reflect on the last decade, and then look forward into the next year and the next decade, and really get an image in your head, in your mind's eye, for the person that you want to be in 2030, and begin like looking intentionally, doing some life planning and how you could begin making that happen in 2020. I know that might not be like the most popular thing in the world, but I'm big on life planning, and I'm big on intentionality when it comes to life planning, because I think that far too many people float, and 15 or 20 years evaporate, and you're not sure how you got to where you are. I never want to come to a part in my life where I'm unsure about how I arrived there. Everywhere I go in my life, I want it to be intentional. I want to have gotten there because I intended to got there, and because I got there on purpose. And you don't get to any place on purpose unless you know where you're going. So examine your life. The unexamined life is not worth living, and you will overestimate what you can accomplish today, but underestimate what you can accomplish in a year. So set some goals for the new year. That's my closing thoughts. Little bit of wisdom.
I love it. It's all correct. All I have to add to that is that New Year's resolutions don't just have to be about fixing problems. They can also be about setting goals for exciting things that you want to do. Hey, I always wanted to go do this. Let's make that a resolution. Resolutions, the root of that is resolve, which means a decision, and a willingness to make something a reality. So, you can resolve to fix something, but you can also resolve to go do something really cool. So
yeah, sure. So I'll just share real quickly my New Year's resolution. I'm going to be a more attentive husband, a more present father. I want to read 18 books, finish 5 terms of seminary, start a new sort of organization that's reaching out to content creators and investing in content creators. So like the grassroots of that are beginning in the beginning of this year, and I'm starting to get that off the ground. And it's something that I just really want to do this year is go to Gen Con this year. So I'm going to make that happen.
Cool.
Going to make that happen. So, hey, your New Year's resolutions don't have to be anything like mine, but hopefully you have some sort of goal, even if you're not calling it a resolution. Oh, and my other one is just to get under 200 pounds and stay there. So going to have to stop eating handfuls of gummy bears and cake, though.
That's not going to do it for you.
No, that's not helping me get there at all.
Well.
Okay, well, DBN, how can people get plugged in with what you're making, man, with the content that you're putting out?
Yeah, well, I'm taking a hiatus from Twitch, but hoping to get back to it once I get in a steady kind of routine with my job. I'm starting a new job next week. Thoughts and prayers and whatnot. It's definitely going to be a transition. But I am definitely still putting out plenty of YouTube content for right now, just for Elder Scrolls Legends, Gwent, and Mythgard. 1 video a week each. Of course, occasionally, like when I get sick, the schedule gets disrupted, but you can expect that. So that's Dead Broke Nerd on YouTube. If you want to follow me on Twitch, in the hopes that I started that back up, it's twitch.tv/deadbrokenerd. And again, I totally intend to get back to it because I love my Twitch community. I just had to stop while I was getting my life in order.
Sure.
And then you can also follow me on Twitter at deadbrokenerd. You can see what I have to say about all sorts of things, gaming related and not gaming related, sometimes sports related. Rip my Dallas Cowboys. That's it. Also, if you guys ever want to message me on Discord or ping me on something, especially in our Legends Cast Discord, if you want me to see something, this goes out mostly to our Discord people. If you're hoping I'm going to see something, don't hope, just ping me and I'll look at it and respond. But I don't always get time to fully scan everything. But I'm happy to see what you guys have and what you guys are up to. And more importantly, if you guys have any questions about any of the games that I am familiar with, I may not be the best person to ask, but I can certainly give you the best answer that I have. I'm happy to help out.
Wasn't bad. That's great. If you want to get connected with me, join our Discord. Just Google Legends Cast Discord and you should be able to find it. It's not hard to join. If you're in a rough season of life, you need someone to talk to, someone to pray for you, someone to listen to you, reach out to me over Discord or email me at eslegendscast@gmail.com. Outside of that, I am streaming a little bit on and off at this point. Streaming a little bit of Elder Scrolls Legends. This is going to be streaming Runeterra when it comes out. Streaming mostly Elder Scrolls Online right now when I get the opportunity. And I will be streaming our Burning Wheel campaign, which is my RPG group. I just finished setting that up. We are going to be streaming. Well, our first stream will be over by the time this releases. But basically every other Thursday night from about 8:30 or so p.m. EST until about midnight EST. We're going to be streaming 2.5 to 3 hours of Burning Wheel, which is a hyper realistic RPG. So I'll include some stuff in on my Twitch channel about that. My Twitch channel is twitch.tv/the113lift. That's probably going to change in the next couple of months. I'll let you know what the new name for that is going to be.
Rebranding.
Yeah, probably going to move over to some of the stuff that I'm doing for reaching out to content creators. We'll see what that looks like. Okay, so that's it for me. Get connected with me there. I'm tired.
Yeah, I'm thirsty.
It's almost midnight. Yeah, my throat's dead. So
yeah.
That's going to do it for us here at Legends Cast. We'll probably be back next week. I hope to be back on a weekly basis at this point.
Me too.
It could be a little less frequent with DBN starting his job and me getting back into school until we find the thing that we're definitely going to weekly podcast about. I think we both feel pretty committed to going back to a weekly show. We just have to figure out exactly what that's going to look like. So just stay tuned into the normal channels and stay subscribed to the podcast to get notifications. That's going to do it for episode number 26 of Legend Cast. Come back and join us next time.